Hi, you guys. We're continuing along now and starting part 4 of integumentary. And we kind of got stuck in the middle here. We're still talking about the dermis. Remember the dermis? Good. So this was a diagram that I showed you of something that happens in the dermis, which is where hair grows. And we had some structures. The center here, this region, and the outer region. Do you remember the names of those? I'm not going to tell you. You need to go back and look. Make sure you know those. Okay, here we go. I wanted to talk about tattoos. Tattoos are ink that's injected into the dermis. So if you injected it into the epidermis, it would eventually, after 30 days or so, come off, correct? Because those cells are flaking off. But if you get it deep down into the dermis, where tattoos are, then that amount of ink in there is going to be difficult to remove. So cells do try and remove it. We have these cells called macrophages, and they come along and try and eat away at the ink. And that's why tattoos will fade, because they actually have eaten out some of it. But it's an overwhelming job. So essentially they can't get to it. Sweat glands, that's something else that's going to be inserted into the dermis, correct? So we want to talk about those. And those come in different types. They can be one of two types. The first is called a merocrine gland. And merocrine glands, you're probably very familiar with. They're everywhere. They are lots in your palms. You've got sweaty hands and sweaty feet, and in your forehead. They're all over the place, and therefore evaporative cooling, correct? If you moisten your skin and then it evaporates, it takes heat with it as it evaporates. So merocrine, you have to think of everywhere. These glands are all over your body, okay? These are what you think of as when you're sweating. Now, more specific, are the apocrine glands. But this is still information on the merocrine, 3 to 4 million of them. And it's just a very simple gland with a coiled end. And I showed you some pictures of those earlier. Okay, merocrine. Here's the picture of it. A coiled gland. It has special cells. Look at this, simple cuboidal epithelium, remember? And so those cells are going to secrete fluid into a little tube that's going to come up to the pore at the surface. We'll make a surface here, and that's how you're going to sweat. No need to know all these terms here. Okay, just the idea, the shape of it. Merocrine gland. The other type is the apocrine gland. And these are different. They're found near a hair follicle. So underarms is a classic place to find these. In the axillary and the genital regions of the beard. And they develop at puberty. Not functioning before that. And they secrete a very oily secretion. It isn't the watery secretion of a merocrine gland. Instead, it's oily. Excuse me. And if not washed well, this will smell. So evolutionarily, why do we have these? Why do we have stinky glands in the axillary genital regions and beards? And that is because it's a pheromone, right? It's attractive. That scent is something that's attractive to the opposite sex. And it has to do with mating behavior. That's all in these apocrine glands. Hopefully we do wash a lot of this oily secretion off, but we do have data showing that even though we're not aware of these pheromones, that we still use some of those pheromonal cues. It's very interesting. Okay, what other glands? Sebaceous glands are very oily, and they also are connected to follicles. We usually have a lot of them on the scalp and the face. The idea here is to keep things moist so that your skin doesn't dry out. Remember, I always say we are terrestrial organisms always in danger of drying out. And so this is an effort along the base of the hair to secrete an oily substance that will keep you essentially lubricated. Okay? And these do increase at puberty, and sometimes they increase so much that it can be a problem with acne. Is a big problem. Mammary glands, and they secrete milk. Nothing more I'm going to say, but it's pretty straightforward. And ceruminous glands, which secrete wax, and these are found in your ears. And they are really a modified sweat gland. They look a bit like a sweat gland with a little coil and the tube, only they're secreting wax instead. So they're dampening sound in our ear to protect the ear against intense sound. It's an ear for you. And these glands are around here, and they're going to be secreting wax into this area and protecting the tympanic membrane. It's all external ear. Oh boy, now I have lots more skin pathologies to show you. All the stuff that can grow on your skin when you don't want it to grow on there, when those cells are just not functioning to diminish. You know, your immune system of the skin isn't quite perfect, and you can have some serious annoyances developing. So let's start with this one. This is a wart. It's a human papillomavirus. It's a common wart. Often it grows like this close to a nail. These are very hard to get rid of. So we can burn them, we can cut them, we can treat them with all sorts of things, and often the virus will come back. It's more common in children, and they sort of go up. Somehow your immune system finally protects against them, but very hard to get rid of. We don't really have a good idea how to do that well. What else? Ooh, lice. Lice could grow on your skin. They could grow on the base of the hair, and that's no fun when that note comes from school or from your child's school saying that there's been lice. Well, we don't have that problem right now while we're at home, right? So this is an example of a crab louse. So that holds on, it's got these hooks that it holds on to pubic hair and hangs out there. It's called Pubis pubis. So pubis should give it away that it's on pubic hair. And this is a head louse on scalp hair. Also, look, did you notice the hooks here? And it can just grab on and lay a bunch of eggs. Not good. And so this is Pediculus humanus capitis. And I'm just telling you this because I want you to be able to recognize it in a multiple choice exam, right? You won't have to write the name out, but you have to be able to distinguish which is the pubic one and which is the head one. And these are mites. Head lice are mites. Kind of like a tick, only different species. Yeast or mold, which are in the major group of the fungi, so it's a fungus. And this is athlete's foot. Here you see this whitish substance around it, and this is athlete's foot. If you were to look at it under excellent magnification, you'd look at the yeast like this with these hyphae that come off it. Also, for some people, very hard to get rid of. And I have a video for you that talks about all these different afflictions. Very hard. You transmit it in showers. You get it from somebody else in a shower. So wear your flip-flops when that happens again. This is impetigo. This is very sad because it's on a child here. It's really an infection of the skin that comes from bad hygiene. So this is either streptococcus or staphylococcus. It's bacteria. And this is a bad case of it. Oh, I can't look at that picture very much. Impetigo. An inflammation of a sebaceous gland where the follicle gets plugged. And this is acne. Dreaded by so many teenagers. This is interesting. This is called surfer rot. It's also a fungus, a yeast or aioli rot. And this is what it does, this yeast does, is it utilizes an enzyme. It kind of consumes that enzyme that's needed for melanin formation. So then you are unable to manufacture the melanin because it is sort of feeding off that enzyme. And in the absence of that enzyme, then you can't make the melanin and you have these white patches. Herpes zoster, chickenpox. So kids don't get this anymore. I had chickenpox because of the vaccine. So in the early 90s, the vaccine became available and nobody gets herpes zoster. Kids don't get it anymore because they're vaccinated, which is fantastic. Shingles is a continuation of that, of chickenpox. So the virus, if you've had chickenpox, still resides along neurons, along a nerve, and it'll just sit there and do nothing for years. And then all of a sudden, because of some stress, some stressor, or drop in your immune response, you will get this outbreak along a nerve. So this line like that is usually along a nerve, and the outbreak is very painful with these blisters, and it's just a general malaise, making you feel very weak and sort of unable to function for at least 2 weeks or so. So in bad cases, it's no fun. There is a vaccine though for shingles. What else? Excessive mitosis of the germinative layer. So too much cell division of that layer of germ cells. So instead of sort of dividing and pushing up to the surface, it divides, pushes up to the surface, dries out, gets very dry, and can look, these are elbows, 2 elbows that look really dry. And this seems to be autoimmune. And you know how we feel about autoimmune diseases. We don't have a handle on autoimmune diseases. Why it is that somehow our immune system triggers those cells to overproduce. That's a really advanced case of it. Psoriasis. Ringworm. This is not a worm. It does form a ring, however. Do you notice? It's a fungus. Lots of fungi grow on us, right? It's sort of like athlete's foot. And it tends to be in more moist areas of the body because it likes that humidity. In the groin sometimes and in the feet. And it does have that little round aspect to it. That's why it was called ringworm. I don't know why they called it worm. It's not a worm. This is often on wrestling mats. So they have to be really disinfected, sprayed, on like yoga mats. They should need to be sprayed so that you're not getting some of these fungi. You must be thinking already, how much of this do you have to know or memorize? I kind of want you to be able to recognize if I showed you a picture of this and if it's a virus, a bacteria, or a fungus. Kind of that's the idea, that you'd get an overall idea of what it is and what is causing it. This is an old clicker. The gland that's secreting this is what kind of gland? Mercrine, apocrine, or ceruminous? Oh, didn't put it in there. And the answer is apocrine. And we come to the end of the chapter. We got through it. Let's see, in 1 minute that we have left, I wanted to mention, no, I think I'm going to leave it. So we'll stop right there. And thanks for listening. Bye.